Welcome back to another episode of the Godly Young Men podcast. This is episode 48. I'm Will here, joined by Joe Wilkie for, again, getting closer and closer to episode 50.
That's right.
It's just exciting.
Almost there.
We are in the middle of the holiday season. Just an all-around really fun time of year. We're going to stick around because we're going to have a fun holiday discussion here at the end of the episode. We're here in mid-December. Again, just a great time of year. But, Joe, we've got a very fascinating episode lined up for today, an outline that you put together. I think it is one of the most needed skills, I guess you might say, because I do think it is a skill. You could say maybe it's more of a trait, maybe more than a skill, but it's one of the most needed things, I guess, for a godly young man to have, and that is critical thinking. Have the ability to think critically. If there's one thing we see a lot of in today's society, unfortunately, especially from younger generations, it is the inability to think critically. The fact that an issue comes up, everybody's mind goes to, what am I supposed to think about it? And that's what I'll think about it. Again, I'm not somebody that just always wants to bash young people. I think young people get far too much bashing. However, this one, they deserve it. Young people want to know, what am I supposed to think? And so that's what I'm going to think. That's where wokeism originates, right? That's where virtue signaling comes in. It's like, instead of actually critically thinking about the issues of the day, it is, what is the popular take of the day on XYZ issue, COVID, George Floyd, racism, whatever. What am I supposed to think? Okay, cool, that's what I'm going to think. People do not have the ability to think critically anymore. And so it is an art. In fact, that's what you have at the top of our outline here, the art of critical thinking. And so I don't know if you want to start with defining what you mean, or maybe just talk a little bit more about the fact that this is such a need for godly young men to have, is the ability to think critically.
Yeah. When it matters, when you're put to the test in some way. The big one on my mind, and we talked about it a little bit off air, COVID.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this a little bit more on how to think critically.
COVID was the evidence for this right here. Yeah.
COVID, that's bingo. That's exactly it. Like, it very much was, oh man, we are very short on critical thinking in our society today, because you see something like that, and this is why this matters so much. Something crazy, the world just blows up, and things are shutting down, and all of a sudden these narratives start coming out. And you're told what to think. You're told how to think it, right? This is what you're supposed to do. This is, you're supposed to take the vaccine, and you're supposed to avoid people, and
wear masks all the time.
Supposed to wear masks all the time. And there's a few of us that were like, hold on. Why does this make sense? Why is, masks? That doesn't even seem to make sense. Like, scientifically, that doesn't make sense. And then you start doing a little more of your own research. You go, okay, scientifically that doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem to be helping at all. And then you watch Fauci come out, and basically is like, yeah, it doesn't stop the spread at all. Unless you're wearing the N95, which is nobody's wearing. This is critical thinking. This is how to think about something. And so critical thinking is where you go more than what other people think. And honestly, I think it's common sense. It's being willing to look at it and go,
that doesn't add up.
That doesn't add up, right?
Yeah.
I know that's what they're telling me to think, but that doesn't add up. And so you see common sense, and there's a lot of people that want to be book smart, and then there's street smarts, right? There's a lot of people that want to be book smart, and book smart is, I've read the books and I know all of these things, and there's the street smart people that go, yeah, but that doesn't add up. Like, you may know all the things in the world, that doesn't mean you know how to navigate social situations. You don't know how to. They're two separate things to a certain degree, but I would still say critical thinking is the ability to kind of understand the book smart while bringing in the street smart, which is more of the common sense. You see these people that, they have a degree from Harvard, but they can't think their way out of a wet paper bag. Like, they have zero common sense when it comes to anything having to do with the world. This is why so many of the academics fell for the COVID stuff, is because they know what to think. They don't know how to think. That's the art of critical thinking.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And this is not going to be a COVID episode. However, again, it fits. Like, it fits perfectly what we're saying, in that we were told, hey, you got to take the vaccine because, this video is going to get censored. Whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
You were told to take the vaccine. Hey, it stops the spread. Or, you won't be able to pass it on. You won't be able to get the virus. Lo and behold, neither one of those things are true. Right. You can still pass it. You can still contract it. Like, all the conspiracy theorists, as we were called, who said, yeah, that's not going to work. Guess what? Didn't work. So, like, this has now been proven. But if we would have said this stuff 2 years ago, how many people would have really been up in arms about, like, how you can't say that. Like, my dad, Jack always brings up, my dad put out a post very early on during COVID about, hey, this is probably from a Japanese lab. He got filleted online, or Chinese, sorry, yeah. He got filleted online by Christians for saying, hey, this is misinformation, you're being reckless, all these things. Lo and behold, guess what was on the Washington Post a year and a half later? Like, it is just kind of, like you said, and let's talk about the street smart, book smart thing. You do have people like that, man, they have a 4-year degree in liberal arts or whatever, whatever.
So I'm smarter than you.
Exactly. And so, academically speaking, from a book smart perspective, on paper, they might be. They might have more knowledge than somebody who maybe went to trade school and didn't go to a traditional college for 4 years. However, when it comes to the street smart angle, they're certainly not. The common sense is lacking a lot there, and this is why I brought up, wokeism. You see this quite a bit in the sense that they can't think through an issue without wanting to know what is the intellectual thing. No. The first thing you need to ask if there's a situation that's arising or a question that you have is not, let me look around and see what the intellectuals are thinking. The real intellectual thing to do is say, let me think through this myself first and see if this adds up. That's not what a lot of 4-year degree people typically do.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. That's what they teach you. And as you look at it, as we talk about it being in short supply, you got to ask yourself why. Academia is a big part of it. Yep. And this starts with the public schools. We're going to have an episode next week on the public schools. Next week. It's not going to be pretty. It'll be a bloodbath, and for good reason. However, even in this week, we're going to start the bloodbath. The public school teaches you what to think. They do not teach you how to think. Kids come out of there as sheep. They come out of there parroting the same garbage day after day after day after day of, we're killing the environment and LGBTQ rights and, love is love and white people, they're all racist because of white fragility, right? All of these things, you have so many kids walking out of public school that are just parroting these things. If you're parroting something, you're not thinking critically. Because if you think critically about it, you go, well, that doesn't seem to add up. That can't possibly be the case that all white people are racist, or that can't possibly be the case that the world's going to end in 5 years.
That a man can literally change his biology and be a woman.
Come on. Exactly. Or, in 5 years, the world's going to end because because of our carbon footprint. You look at these things, and if you're thinking critically about it, and we're taking on every...
This video is going to have 7 views.
I was going to say,
get so censored.
It's going to be so censored. But this is the problem when you have no common sense. Public school is the epitome of a place where common sense is not taught. Why? Because common sense is the enemy in a place like that.
Yeah.
Same thing in academia. It's the enemy in academia because you're not supposed to ask questions. You're not really supposed to know why. You're not supposed to know how to think. You're supposed to know what to think. Because when you know what to think, you know who to vote for, right? Who they want you to vote for. And you know all of the social issues that they want you to be aware of.
You're such a conspiracy theorist. Come on now.
It's like, this is not difficult. Hitler said the same exact thing. Get the youth, right? Everybody. Lenin did the same thing. Get the youth. They all did that. They all understand if you can get the youth to be on your side, which how do they do that? Government schools, that's how. Then everything's good from there. But how do you get the youth? By teaching them what to think and not how to think. And so we literally have an entire generation where they cannot think themselves through any situation unless they can see it on YouTube or somebody else told them that.
We're gonna, again, next week we're gonna have a lot of reasons as to why you should homeschool, why public school is just an absolute nightmare scenario for your kids. This element of it we did not have planned to discuss, and so it fits in very well here. You think about the standardized testing era of, kind of, what is going to be on the test? That's what I need to know. Okay, let me just memorize those things.
Yeah.
Take the test, never remember them for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like, it's a bad, in my opinion, it's a poor form of education to, again, get kids how to be good test takers, to get kids how to memorize facts and memorize, sure, their head knowledge might be where we want it. But then again, for most kids, it's not, because they just memorize the study guide. They just know what they have to know for the test, and they move on. Another piece of evidence for this, writing. Communicating via writing. To me, that's a really good indicator of how smart a young person is if they can, without using Chat GPT,
right,
if they can write a paper eloquently, articulately, and then they're able to argue a position, they're able to have a thesis statement, defend it. Standardized testing is a little bit different. Again, it's just memorize the facts, memorize the answers, know what you need to know. Young people's writing these days is down the tank, and I think that is, again, evidence of what you're saying. It takes critical thinking to be able to write. It takes critical thinking to be able to argue a position. It takes critical thinking
to string thoughts together,
to string paragraphs together, to defend a position, all these things. So, yeah, I would just say, as far as the public schools go, that is a measuring stick, I would say, is how good is the writing? Can they communicate via writing? Can they read something and come away with an analytical view of it, or is it just, okay, what terms do I need to know for the test? What's the theme of the book that I need to know? You know what I mean? Like, the standardized testing era is what stuck out in my mind for the public school system.
Well, a few weeks ago we talked about social anxiety, right? And one of the biggest issues with social anxiety is I don't think well on my feet. I what am I going to say? When you have grown up only learning what you're supposed to, the what and not how to think, or even why to think that, then yes, you're going to be stumped.
You're
in a
gonna
lot of
freeze,
so-
yeah.
You're going to freeze because it's like, what am I supposed to say here? There is no what am I supposed to say here. It's how do I engage with this person, right? What am I trying to accomplish? And if we understand the why of why we're even communicating and how to communicate with them, it really doesn't matter what we think. It's more of like that part will come naturally, but we're always trying to get the what. So the critical thinking, as you're saying it's not the what, it's the how and the why. And like that unlocks a lot for us. But the other thing I would say before we get into how to think critically and really building these skills, parents a lot of times do the, hey, because I told you so. Well, why can't I do
There's
it?
no
Because
why
I told you so.
behind it, yeah.
There's no why. Right? They explain what the kid is supposed to do, and we do the same thing in church. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. You've spoken on this a bunch. I've spoken on this a bunch. One of my biggest pet peeves with kids is no expectations, as we talked about, which is why we're raising the expectations here. We never tell them why. Well, don't fornicate. Don't go sleep with your girlfriend. Okay, cool. That sounds great at 12 years old when you don't have a girlfriend. Like, oh, absolutely. I'll wear my promise ring.
Then they get to 18.
And then they get, exactly, you get to 18 and go, whoa, I had no idea how difficult this is. Well, yeah, because all you know to do is, or what not to do, really, you don't know what to do, and you also
They
don't
had
know
the
why
answers to the
do it.
test. They memorized the answers to the
Bingo.
test. Yeah.
And then it changed on them, and you go, whoa, that's really difficult. So this is the issue with critical thinking, and this is why I put a lot of blame on the public schools, I put a lot of blame on the parents, because the parents aren't teaching their kids how to think. They're
Correct.
teaching them what to think just as much as the public schools do, and they think, okay, the public schools teach them this, I, as the parent, will teach him the opposite, and both sides, the kid's learning what to think. Well, you're supposed to think biblically. Well, you're supposed to think like the world. Okay, these are a lot of whats. How do I think things through? I'm not afraid of thinking anything through and questioning, which really is, again, I guess this gets us into,
I was just going to say real quick, another piece of evidence for this question. Why do you believe in God? Why are you a Christian? Why do you go to church?
Right.
Why do you believe the Bible? You know how many young people can't answer that question?
That's very true.
Like, because my parents take me to church.
Right.
Because I was raised this way. Because you're supposed to believe in God. Like, those can't be the answers.
Right.
But they are the answers for a lot of young people. And I don't fault the young people for that. That is something that has to be taught to them.
Yeah.
That is something that you're not going to just develop by osmosis and just kind of figure out on your own. But man, I've said before, if you don't know why you're a Christian, if you don't know why you believe the Bible and why you believe in God beyond, well, I think I'm kind of supposed to, man, you're going to be in some very dangerous territory with your faith. But this is why this is such a big deal. Like, you might be thinking, man, who cares if I know how to think critically? This is why, because you need to know the why on these things. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're all good. That gets us into how to think critically. Because the biggest question is, and I guess this kind of gets us, we'll do number two and then come back to
Sure,
number
go ahead.
one. Number two is ask why. We've said this a lot. Ask why to everything. Why do I believe in God? Well, why do we do it that way? Why do we baptize? Why don't we use instruments? From that side of it. Well, why does that girl act this specific way? Why did she say that? Why do my parents talk to each other that way?
Yep.
Question everything. Why not? I'm getting into number one.
You're blending the two.
I'm blending the two, but ask why to everything. The number one thing I had on here is question everything. Nothing should be outside of scrutiny, because the thing about, I am blending the two, but the thing about questioning everything, I have no problem questioning Christianity.
Sure.
Because it holds up.
Yep.
It has such a strong foundation that we are on a firm rock. I'm
So-
not at all worried about questioning, does God actually exist? Whoa, don't ask those questions. Ask
That's
away,
what I was
man.
say. So many Christians are paralyzed by those questions.
Yeah,
Like, no, you can't
ask
ask that.
away.
Like, yes, you can. Yeah.
You can, because you will always come back to God.
Yep.
God is at the center of everything. He's at the center of all of our psychology. He's at the center of all our archaeology. He's at the center of everything, and history. And so when you start asking questions and you question everything and you go, hey, why does this happen? Or what about this? Or, when did this take place? You will always come back to God.
Well, let's bring it back to our template analogy too. Why do I need to take the COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
Why do masks work? Are you sure masks are, again, questioning everything? Are you sure masks work? Are you sure that it's supposed to be 6 feet apart until you get on a Southwest Airlines flight, and then 2 feet apart is acceptable because you got to eliminate the middle seat? Why does that work? That's critical thinking. That's asking those questions of, again, like, that drove me nuts. That's just a pet peeve. Like, 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. But if you get on an airplane, 2 feet's fine.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. Or my other favorite, again, COVID episode here, but my other favorite was, you have to wear your mask to the restaurant and then to your table. But when you sit down at the table, the germs, you can take your mask off. The germs don't float around after that once you're seated. Like, give me a break.
Or what's even worse is when they said, okay, you pull it down, you take a bite, and you put it back up, and it's like, we're going for this?
Yeah, they're like, exactly.
I'm not some dog. Like, this is some Pavlovian response or whatever. I literally drove by a woman the other day. This is yesterday. This is yesterday.
2023.
In her truck. Driving through the intersection.
Windows
and
up.
She's windows up, and she's got a mask on. In her own car. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yep.
You have no critical thinking skills. Now, I don't know. I mean, Actually, no. I was gonna say maybe there's something going on. There's nothing going on. You're in your own car, man.
Right, yeah.
Like you're in your own car. Why are you wearing a mask? Because you were told to. Because CNN freaked you out and told you, oh, something's coming back.
Because all the celebrities posted their Instagram pictures of them with their
Yep.
masks on, and yeah, exactly.
And we got to play our part and everything else. No, question everything. Why do we do that? That's dumb. And come to find out, it was really dumb. Masks don't do anything. Most of the masks, unless you're wearing the super big mask, they do nothing. Well, we know that now. But how did we know that 2 years ago when we basically, for those of us that didn't comply with it?
Right.
Because we had critical thinking skills. And we looked at it and go,
Common
hold on a
sense,
second.
yeah.
That's common sense. Like, that doesn't actually work. Why would that stop the spread of anything? Like, this is, but we were told what to think. When we ask why, as we're supposed to, you realize that falls short.
So let me move into the next thing as far as how to think critically. The third thing you got on here is learn how others think. And essentially, tied to that, learn why they do what they do.
Yeah.
I know for you as a therapist, this is like your wheelhouse, man. Your bread and butter of like, why do people do what they do? Why do they think this way? But this is something I gotta say. I think it's probably from being friends with you that my brain has started to think more in this way of like, kind of psychoanalyzing people's personalities and like why they act a certain way, what insecurities are contributing to it, and maybe what are some things that they've had in their past that have affected them as far as this moment goes. Again, I think you're rubbing off on me there, but it does make things way more interesting, I should say. Of you have a bad interaction with one of your parents or something.
Yeah.
Ask why. What do you think led to that? What are some of the reasons? Where was it escalated? Where could you have de-escalated? Like all these things that get past the surface level of I didn't like what they said, or I disagree with them. Learn why other people think the way that they do. And
this is kind of a judgmental thing. I'm sure people thought we were jerks and very judgmental, but my family did this a lot. We would look at other people's circumstances, and it would go very south. And people are going to look at this and go, that's horrible, don't do that. But we would look at other people's circumstances, and it's like, we're not judging them. Look, they got their own thing, but literally what led them to that?
No, that's great. Yeah.
Why in the world? We would use real-world examples of like, whoa, this guy ended up getting a STD. Like, how do those things happen? He's a good Christian kid. And so you'd start looking through, well, this happened here, this happened there, he made a bad choice there. And what you'd realize is the bad choices started 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And once you kind of understood that, you started realizing, oh, this is why he did what he did, right? This is what led to it. Maybe that's why I like being a therapist, is that was kind of early training on for why do people do what they do. Use other people as an example. You don't have to make all the mistakes in the world. You can look at other people's mistakes and go, how did they get there? Why do they do what they do? Why do they think that way? How do you get somebody who thinks that abortion is okay?
Yeah.
Maybe they just haven't been taught, right? Maybe they don't know. But the more we understand and can put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, in my opinion, that is such a helpful part of critical thinking. Is I don't just know my worldview. I now am trying to understand and explore their worldview. And how's my worldview? Like, we're very diametrically opposed. The person that believes in abortion, how did they get to their worldview? How can I stand so confidently in my worldview when there's so many others? And you get this a lot for young people. How do we know we're right? There's 1,000,001 religions out there. How do we know we're right? Well, first off, our God said he's going to rise from the dead and actually did it. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a big one. But
just off the top of your head.
Just off the top of my head, just thinking, maybe that's the first one. However, there's also, you can look at the Hindu, you can look at the Muslim, you can look at their worldviews, and you can see why do they believe what they believe? And when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and when you learn how they think, and you know why they do what they do, it's so strong. Like to me, it really solidifies why I do what I do. Because once I can understand them, then I can better understand me. This is Sun Tzu, kind of art of war, right? Like, I know the enemy.
Because you have that foundation.
Yes, you have that foundation. And so when it comes to critical thinking, we want to make sure we're establishing as firm of a foundation as possible, because that's the basis for critical thinking. When you get kids that go to college, 18, 19 years old, we're stupid at 18 and 19 years old. We don't have a worldview, because this is really basically 17 to 23 is your worldview building experience.
Where it's being shaped.
That's where it's being shaped more than anything. And you take a kid from 18 to 22, and you put him in in academia, you put him in a university, and the professor now gets to shape the way he thinks and gets to shape the worldview.
Has the most influence over how your young person's worldview will be shaped.
And that's why it's so scary to send them off to college. And I would put that in with the public schools. It's academia, where they are not teaching them how to think critically, but they hammer on your worldview. If you come in with a Christian worldview and you don't know how to think through certain problems, you just know what to think, they will eat you alive, faster than you can even imagine, because they know how to pick you out.
Yep.
Well, you do it because your parents do it, but what about this? And they throw out something that sounds super smart, but in reality is
super dumb.
Super dumb. If you don't know how to think through that and go, whoa, hold on a second. This is what allows you to think on your feet is I don't have to have the answers to everything. I have to know how to process and work through the questions to everything, if that makes sense, because I have a foundation and I'm going to use my foundation to answer this. Well, I know the Bible is the Word of God. So if I know that, and if I know God is
and I know why the Bible's the Word of God.
Exactly, and I know why it is. Like, if I can understand those things, then I can handle this, because that can't possibly make sense, right? So we start thinking through those things. So I know this is long, but yeah, there's so much.
I don't have a lot to add. I think you covered that very well. I think this is the last thing you've got on here. Know your motivations as far as, how to think critically. Know what motivates you. I think that, let me ask you, you're the therapist. You're going to be better equipped to answer this than I am. Are there kind of, standard, typical things that motivate people? Obviously, there's a billion and one things that could motivate people. As far as general things like money, sex, things like that. What are the general categories of things that motivate people?
Well, specifically, I was thinking, and you already actually beautifully hit on this earlier, which is the need to fit in.
Yeah.
Right? We like to think we're thinking critically, but, I was thinking critically about COVID masks. Were you?
Yeah.
Right? Were you truly thinking critically about the vaccine, or did you realize that you were succumbing to the severe amount of peer pressure that was telling you you're trying to kill grandma because you didn't, you weren't doing it?
Right.
That's peer pressure we can't begin to imagine. And so for all of us that didn't, did you ever watch that Brostradamus, they call him?
No, I never did. Sorry.
Goodness. No, that's okay. Guy, right as it broke out, I think this guy's in Canada, and he's like, this is what's going to happen, and he just looks like a complete idiot, and he literally outlines
what exactly happened.
What exactly is going to happen. I mean, it was unbelievable. They call him Brostradamus. It was unbelievable, but that was the critical thinking. The motivation for so many people was, I just want to fit in.
Yeah.
I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to go against the establishment. If you know your motivations as to why you're thinking what you do, so somebody tells you, your college professor. For those of us, this is Gym Podcast, right? So a lot of you may be in college for the age group we're talking about. They may challenge you on some point historically about Scripture. Maybe you're kind of prone to believe it, and you go, man, well, a lot of people they don't want to be dumb, so motivation would be not just fitting
intellectual intellectual
intimidation. I don't want to be seen as an idiot.
Yeah.
Therefore, all of a sudden, I start kind of figuring out how I'm going to get my worldview. It's never, I don't want to be dumb, therefore I give up my beliefs. It's, how do I get my beliefs to align with
It's the exact same thing with I don't want to be considered unloving, so let me accept all the trans people.
Correct.
It was homosexuality 15 years ago, but now it's, you don't want to be a bigot, you don't want to, again, you don't want to be judgmental is another big one.
And you read into Scripture, right?
Correct, yeah. And so you, like you said, you figure out a way, how can I align my views and the world's views, really is what it is, with what I kind of grew up learning in Bible class. And so that's why you end up with a lot of these very woke churchgoers, I'd call them, who, are very, very flaky in their attendance. But it's because they are trying to align two completely diametrically opposed worldviews.
Yeah, that's exactly it. What you have to get to, and we talked about this on the social anxiety, you can't care what other people think.
Yeah.
You just can't care what other people think. Your motivation has to be, I want to know the truth, and I want to get down to the solid rock, which is God, right? But I want to know the truth about X, Y, Z. When that's the case and you really are thinking critically and just trying to come to an understanding, the truth may hurt.
Yep.
The truth may go against what you thought was the case. But am I finding the truth? And then you go, well, how do I know if I've arrived at the truth? Fair point. You want to know once you have. If you tested it by how do you know that masks didn't work? How do you know you arrived at the truth? Well, you look at all the scientific data, and they say, well, look at all this scientific data. Science lies a lot of the time. You got to see who actually funds these studies, because you realize, oh wow, those are funded by the same
by
people.
Pfizer. Wow.
Exactly, by Pfizer. I'm shocked that they found out that there's nothing wrong with the vaccine. You have to. This is part of critical thinking, and then you go, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's one of those things. This is going to sound like such a cop out. You either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
You either get it or you don't.
My favorite thing, because these tweets will still pop up. Guys, very prominently renowned people that got their 5th and 6th booster shot. I've tested positive for COVID. I'm so grateful that I have my 6th booster. Otherwise, my symptoms would be way worse. It's like, go back and read that tweet. Just read that out loud. The say it out loud test of you got your 6th booster and you still came down with COVID. Starting to think it didn't work. Yeah. And you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so,
but thank goodness it could have been so much worse. I literally read the tweet where the guy, they died, and they said it could have been so much worse. He could have suffered worse. Thankful he had his vaccine.
Insanity,
the guy died.
Yeah.
How much worse could it get? I'm sorry, but this is where people go brain dead.
Yeah.
So how do you know that you've arrived at the truth? I think you test it by a number of separate things. Obviously, if it has anything to do with biblical precedent. You want to make sure that it's grounded in God. For the other things, COVID, things like that, can you stand by it and live with what truth you've come to, quote unquote, on this? Does it hold up to everything you've looked at? You've looked at both sides, not just the side that you want, right?
Yep.
We can be biased and go, well, all the data's looking.
Evaluate both sides.
Correct.
Yeah.
Evaluate both sides, and then you make that choice and live with it. If you decide the vaccine is safe, and I've looked at the data on both sides, okay, hey, I'm not condemning you for it. It's not a brotherhood issue or anything like that, a fellowship issue. But maybe that's something that you've come to. I'm not going to say you're an idiot for doing it. If you critically thought about it, that's all we care about is you've looked at both sides and you have made a decision. You've come to the decision, having kept your eyes completely open. You know your motivations. You know you're just trying to come to the truth. To me, understanding the truth is a heart issue. You know when you've arrived and you've really dug to the very bottom, to the depths of like, I've gone as far as I can and this is what I think it is. Then you know you've thought critically. Even if we disagree on our conclusions, that's okay. We both thought critically about it, and that's really all we're trying to do.
But you didn't get your answer from, insert celebrity's tweet.
Yeah,
which
that
is
or Google or Wikipedia or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things that, as we're looking at the outline, it's tough to define. Not tough to define. It's tough to describe how to develop it. It's tough to describe, what it looks like. And so it is really a matter of you're not going to other people necessarily for all of your opinions on things, for all of your takes on things, for all of your...
To the collective.
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, we've talked about COVID a lot. That was such a big indicator of this, is the people who had kind of drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, the people who had kind of bought what everybody would, what the news was selling them, versus the people that sat back and were like, okay, let's actually think about this for just a second. With masks, with vaccines, with all these things that it's all coming out now. The people who were like, let's think about it for a second, were the correct ones. Like, history is going to reflect that. And so that was the other thing I was going to say, is young people can get so, wrapped up in, well, I want to be on the quote unquote right side of history, right? I want to be, again, on the loving end or the non-judgmental end. History will look more fondly on those who stood for truth, whether that be about abortion. We haven't talked a lot about, again, the homosexual movement, whatever it is. Those who stood their ground on truth are looked at quite a bit more fondly when it comes to history. But anything else that you wanted to add to this critical thinking
that's
one?
Such a good point. I was thinking about Martin Luther. History's not going to reflect kindly on you, Martin Luther.
Right.
I think
it does.
He thought critically, and I think it reflected pretty well on his ability to call out what was very egregious in 95 ways. History looks fondly. Look, history's written by the winners, as they say. That's the Braveheart quote. But I think we can look back and see the people who really were critical thinkers who stood up and said, this is not right. Right? They were willing to stand up against everybody else.
Founding fathers,
that's the case. The founding fathers, exactly. I mean, those are critical thinkers who really were able to think their way through things. That's what we're looking for. And so I think that's going to wrap us out. I don't think we have anything else. We wanted to come to, unless there's anything else.
No, go for it.
We wanted to come to, hey, I think we're at the 12th.
mid-December.
Yeah, we're mid-December. We're mid-December. So, we wanted to do a little fun. Christmas hasn't arrived yet, but we are very much in the midst of holiday season. I'm very strongly in the belief that the holiday season doesn't really begin. Christmas season doesn't begin until the day after Thanksgiving. A lot of people already have their Christmas lights up. It's like, whoa, wait. But...
and real quick, can I give my take on that? Because everybody's like, bah humbug, you're such a... No. I love the Christmas season so much.
Very much
that
so.
I don't want to be tired of it by December the 12th.
That's so true.
If you start November, 2nd, or some people start in October, I guess most people wait till after Halloween. But if you're starting the first week in November, you know how tired of the Christmas music you're going to be, and tired by again, December the 10th. The reason I am going to forever stand firm on my after Thanksgiving we can start recognizing Christmas is because I want to revel in the Christmas season and enjoy it. And I'm just not going to enjoy it, if it's stretched out over 2.5 months.
That's so true. That's so true.
My little soapbox moment.
That's a great point. And I just don't like that Thanksgiving gets erased. Oh, it's just a day for food. No, it's way more than a day for food. We like the Thanksgiving season. However, we are very much in the midst of Christmas season. So you had come up with a question, and I like this. Top 3 things of the Christmas season.
Top 3 favorite things about the Christmas season. I think you had actually said on our Think Deeper episode that Christmas is your favorite season. Yeah. So I'm very curious. Or favorite holiday. Maybe you said holiday. Very curious what your answer is going to be. I'll go 3, 2, 1. Actually, I'm going to go 3, you go 3, I'll go 2. Anyway, my third one, pretty cheesy. I love the food and drink, the specialty food and drinks that you get around the holiday season. Going into coffee shops and seeing all of their specialty seasonal drinks that you're only going to get in December.
Yep.
I think is awesome. Peppermint mochas are absolutely incredible. I had a ginger snap latte today that was a Christmas drink.
Oof.
Like, just love that. But not to mention like the Buckeyes and the tiger butter and all the holiday treats that you get that you just don't get January through November.
That's
I
on my
love
list.
it. I love it. Yeah, that's my third. What's yours?
That'll be a little bit later on my list.
Probably number one for Joe.
Number three. Number three, I would say, is the Christmas lights, and I love getting hot chocolate and going around and just looking at the Christmas lights.
That's good.
So I love that people put that much effort into it. I just like that. I love that people take time to do the blows. One of my good friends back in Denver, his dad is like regularly on the news or in the papers for doing his house so big.
That's cool.
It's unbelievable. There's hardly 2 square feet of grass where there's not some blow up doll or whatever else.
I have so many fond memories of just driving around with our hot chocolate looking at lights. It's really cool. My number 2 is actually Christmas music. I'm a big fan of Christmas music.
Really?
And again, I get accused of being Mr. Bah Humbug because I do not listen to it before Thanksgiving. But it's because I love listening to it. I love that we have a type of literally a genre of music for 1 month of the year.
That's true.
I think that's really cool. Like every
That's
other
true.
kind of music you can basically listen to all year round, except for Christmas music, which is it's got its own unique songs. I love that artists are trying to come up with kind of new like things that they want to be classics that are just kind of new. They're trying stuff, and of course you still have the classics. So I don't know. I really like Christmas music.
I get so sick of it by the time.
I wonder why, because it starts in November.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, there's some good stuff out there. Number 2 for me is the
food
baking.
And drink,
yeah, and I would say specifically the baking Christmas candy.
Sure.
There's just a nostalgia with it. We'd always listen to Chipmunks, the Chipmunks album, and be baking Christmas, and so it's like a family tradition for us. We have some things that you don't see in other places.
Sure.
Some of the things that we do, family potato candy and things like that, which sound gross, but very good. And so, yeah, there's just some things like that are very nostalgic for me at that time of year, and it brings me back to a certain time in my life. So, yeah, that would be number 2 for me.
I think for me, my number 1, because, man, hanging out with family and friends is kind of a given. It's kind of a lame answer.
Exactly.
So I'm not really going to say that. I think my number 1 is the fact that it's really like you watch a movie and the ending is the crescendo ending where it's just an incredible ending to the movie.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for the end of the year. You're getting geared up for the next year. You're getting excited about the next year, and the year just ends on such a positive note with Christmas and getting some time off from work and getting to see family and getting to hang out with family and friends. And a lot of people take vacation. We take vacation at the end of the year. It's like a great end to a movie where everything, you're building up for the month, you're building up for the month, and it's like, bam. Just a great ending to the movie. So again, very, very tough to. That's not very tangible, but that's probably my favorite part of the Christmas season.
I like that. My number 1 is the gift giving. The gift receiving is nice at this point. I work for myself. I work for a living. Like if I needed it, or if I wanted it, I probably got it
already. Yeah.
I love the idea of finding out specifically for my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the look on their face.
That's a new area of life that I'm enjoying as well.
Yeah. And we're doing Santa. I don't think my siblings do Santa. We're doing Santa.
We are as well. Yeah.
First off, as you'll find out, it's very tough to keep it going because they happen to see a Santa gift. Oh my goodness. Yeah. My son the other day looks up and we got him an Avs jersey for Christmas, and a tiny bit of the sleeve is hanging out. And this is at the top of the garage. I mean, it's like 9 feet off the ground. I'm thinking, I didn't even notice it when I put it there. There's no way. And he's like playing, and he looks up and goes, "Is that my Avs jersey? Are you kidding me?" So, you know what I mean? It's tough to pull off Santa Claus sometimes. But I love it. I love shopping for them and just coming up with some ideas like how to surprise people.
Giving gifts. So, me and my wife were joking. This is the last thing I'll say because we got to run. We're going longer on the Christmas stuff than we are on the critical thinking stuff. Me and my wife always have a budget that we try to set for spending on each other of like we'll spend $250 or whatever on each other. And we blow through it every single year because we both get so excited about, they're going to love this gift. That is very cool about the Christmas season. You enjoy giving stuff. But yeah, that's a good list. I would encourage all of our listeners and watchers, what is your list? Again, we're mid-December. What are your favorite things about the holiday season, specifically the Christmas season? Is it the gifts, the food, the drink, the lights, whatever it is? It is a fun time of year. Yep. We've still got 2 more gym episodes for you for the rest of this year. So 49 and 50. So we will end on episode 50 for the year.
That is so cool.
The day after Christmas. So be ready. Maybe we'll have some Christmas lights strung up or something. We'll have to figure something out. But thank you so much for joining for this episode. We'll be back with a zinger of an episode next week on homeschooling versus public school. So stay tuned, or I should say tune in for that one. But for right now, we thank you very much for listening to episode 48 of the Godly Young Men podcast.